Run.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to On the Run for Friday, the 9th of December. And yes, I'm still in Macau. It's the end of the year, and I've come back to home base in Macau for the Christmas holidays and for the launch of a new product that our parent company, O Media, is doing on January the 1st. And just to do all of the end of year stuff, our Christmas Mad party tomorrow. So I'll be in Macau a little while, maybe 6 weeks or so, just getting everything done for the end of the year and the beginning of next year before I hit the road and go on the run again, perhaps just after Chinese New Year or just before Chinese New Year. I'm not sure. But once I do get on the run again, sometime later on in January, I will be well and truly traveling to many, many places and traveling pretty much nonstop for many months. But anyway, for now, greetings from Macau. And let's put up the rundown. There it is. And you see there, the first item is greetings from Macau. And let's move on to the second item. I'm calling it, this is the end of COVID zero. I'm going to call it. So I believe this is the beginning of the end of COVID zero. They will not, well, first of all, Macau will follow China. They've always followed China. They've always said they're going to follow China. And I've written a lot about that, so there's no need to write any more about that. But Macau will definitely follow China, as in mainland China. What will mainland China do? Well, mainland China has made it pretty clear that it's the end of COVID zero. Now, they haven't said that, and they never will say that. But you can just tell from all of the changes that have happened in the last few days, home isolation now for asymptomatic and mild cases. I mean, there's a raft of changes suddenly coming out of China, which indicate that COVID zero is on the way out. And that's great news for China, and that's great news for Macau. And I think we will see a much better Macau in 2023. So I'm pretty excited about that. And as I say, there'll be no official announcement. There'll be no magic pronouncement or press conference or anything like that in mainland China. It will just slowly happen, and they'll start to just not refer to COVID zero or dynamic clearing or any expressions like that. And the message is certainly well and truly out from the top, down to the provincial level and the city level authorities to back off on COVID zero. And there's a lot of changes happening right now, which is fantastic. Let's go through the lead stories for the last week. Friday of last week, we had the announcement that from the court that Mr. Chow, Alvin Chow's verdict will be on the 18th of January. You can bet your bottom dollar that IAG will be there in court to bring you the verdict as soon as it is announced. And I won't say any more about that because it's sub judice, and I think we should let the process in the courts take its course. Okay, now Monday, what did we have? We had a Carter Manila, very strong third quarter results this year. They were a little bit delayed because of the shenanigans that went on at Carter Manila with Kazuo Okada and his cronies taking over for a few months and then being kicked back out, and Byron Yip and the team going back in. And but the good news is that Okada Manila had very, very strong third quarter. GGR, if I'm not mistaken, was around $170 million US, up 15% quarter on quarter. And I expect that to continue to rise as the Philippines continues to make its recovery. Remember, all of that pretty much is on mass, very little overseas VIP, some local VIP, of course. Tuesday's lead story was that Mr. Chan from Takchun, his trial started on Monday, somewhat mirroring the trial of Mr. Chow from Sun City. He was mostly silent during the trial. There were 8 defendants who were being tried in absentia. Only Mr. Chan himself was physically there in the court. And as I say, he mostly kept his mouth shut. So let's see how that develops. Again, it's sub judice, it's going through the courts. So I don't want to say too much about that. Wednesday's lead story was that the Macau concessionaires are seeking 17 million US dollars from Tuck Chun in compensation for lost revenue, and let's see how that plays out. Thursday's lead story was about Singapore, that Singapore has had record sort of gaming turnover figures for lotteries and sports betting, 9.2 billion Singapore dollars. That's about 7 billion, 6.8 billion US dollars for their lotteries and sports betting for the year to 31 March. They work on a 31 March year in Singapore for the year to 31 March 2022. And it was the highest amount of money collected for casino entry levies for 4 years since the year to 31st of March 2018, 125 million Singapore dollars was collected. That's 92 million US. So well done, Singapore, and Singapore is also bouncing back. So there's a recurring theme here. Everywhere outside of Macau and Asia is bouncing back, and maybe Macau might be bouncing back a bit next year too. I'm suddenly a little bit optimistic, so that's really, really good. Don't think it'll bounce back to where it was, not nearly where it was, but at least it'll be better. 2023 is going to be better than 2022. I think that's pretty clear for Macau, so I'm excited about that. What else? Honourable mentions during the week. The new Macau junket law will go to the Legislative Assembly in mid-December, we've been told, and that will clarify how deposits will work for junkets. But I think this is basically a non-event now. I think we know that junkets are pretty much done in Macau. There will be still some junkets, of course, and they will operate much as they did back in the 90s. Rolling percentage on turnover, percentage on rolling, no separate junket rooms, no rev share, and of course, junkets are only allowed to work with one concessionaire each. So they've been really crippled as a gaming entity. What else? Vietnam. We had a story that Vietnam had 597,000 visitors in the month of November, which is the highest month since the pandemic, and that tourism revenue in Vietnam was 70% of pre-pandemic levels. Now, the visitation was nowhere near 70%, so that implies that the tourists that are coming are the wealthier ones that are spending more, which makes sense. The people who are more motivated to come back, who really want to come to the country, will go first, and they will spend more. And typically the biggest feeder market for Vietnam is, of course, Korea. A lot of Korean men married to Vietnamese ladies, and there's a lot of Korean industry in Vietnam too. So the links between Korea and Vietnam are certainly quite substantial. What else? The World Dream ship, that with the vessel that was owned by Genting Hong Kong. Genting Hong Kong obviously going bankrupt. We all know that. 2.8 billion US dollars in debts. I have to say that every time. That's going up for auction this month. So we'll see who buys that. We had Disney buy the other one. The name slips me right now. Was it I can't remember. Another one of the dream ones, of the 10th biggest or 11th biggest passenger ship in the world, 9,000 berths, but Disney's going to change it to 6,000. But of course, KT Lim himself, or one of his entities, one of the Genting entities, one of the other Genting entities, could easily buy that ship. So we'll wait and see what happens. I published on Monday, if I'm not mistaken, a review of the Grand Coloane Quarantine Hotel. I quarantined there for 5 days. And there was quite a lot of views of that video where I reviewed the hotel and I went through in detail all of the aspects of the hotel. Please watch that if you haven't already. If you're interested in the Grand Coloane, or you think you might have to quarantine in Macau, or a friend might have to quarantine in Macau, lots of good information there. And congrats once again to the Grand Coloane on doing a great job in making a difficult stay, which is for quarantine, as best as possible. We had a little story that Casinos Austria got fined $10,000, almost nothing, for a little indiscretion in their Reef Casino in Cairns in Australia. They used a junket agent and they forgot to advise the government that they were going to do that, or get the approval of the minister. I think they have to get under the Queensland law for the casino there. but the court said, look, this was an honest administrative mistake, and so they only fined them 10,000. But it is another fine in Australia for an Australian casino doing something that they shouldn't have done. Nothing like the 100 million and 80 million and those kind of numbers we've seen for their colleagues down south in Australia, but yet it is another indication. And also, and this is not on the rundown, but it just comes to mind, AUSTRAC is investigating Sky City at the moment as well in Adelaide. We had a story about that. All right, well, if that's it, we've got the Christmas party tonight, the Mad Christmas party tonight. So that'll be great. If you're invited, please come along. If you're looking for an invite, drop us a line and maybe we can swing one for you. And it's going to be a great night at Grand Lappa. So thank you to them, and thank you to the sponsors, IGT and Light & Wonder, both platinum sponsors. And it'll be our last event for the year. And also I'll see all of you on the run next Friday, which will also be from Macau. So have a great weekend, have a great week, enjoy the World Cup, and see you next week. Bye for now.
Run.